What's going on, wrestling family? Welcome back to the channel. So as you see, I am recording again from my Temu setup at work, so I apologize in advance for the audio and the video quality. I'll try my best to clean it up if there's any problems. But what I wanted to do is react to this video from Kiss the Ring, which I stumbled across their channel and I watched a couple of their videos. They do some really good work as individuals and as a group. I rock with Kenny Bomb, I rock with Kiro, I rock with Brian. So if you can do me a favor, go to their channel, hit the subscribe button, and let them know I sent you. But what stood out about this video is they made one about the new acquisition to WWE, Stephanie Vaquer Jacares. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I've heard so many people say it in a different way. But anyway, without further ado, let's see what these guys have to say about her. Let's get into it.
Mr. Kenneth Bumington, we're going to talk about this newest acquisition of the WWE, Stephanie Vaquer. I still don't know how to say her surname, to be honest with you, but I've been doing a little bit more research on her, and I've also, seen what she's done in the live event debut. She had an interesting theme song. I wonder if that's going to be like her permanent theme song. She came out there for a pretty, decent reaction. I mean, it was... her people. So she was in, basically a home situation. Yep. So, I thought, she's very well put together in the sense that she knows what she's doing in the ring. She got it all basically settled. She knows her look. She's ready. I don't even know if she would put her in NXT, you know what I mean? Unless you want to teach her some promo or maybe add a what do you call it, a manager with her.
That's a good idea.
That's what you want to test out. Maybe then you can put her into NXT. But I feel like she's another Asuka. When she first came into NXT, Asuka pretty much had everything. Maybe they had to work on, sell to this camera, do your moves to this camera for Asuka. But I felt like she was also very much ready for the main roster as well. Then they messed up Asuka, even though she's really successful. I think Stephanie has the potential to be even more successful because there's no Vince McMahon here to make her lose to Charlotte in her first WrestleMania match.
Which is true. I mean, that loss to Charlotte at WrestleMania was pretty devastating. But I'll say this. The thing is, and the Vince McMahon thing is true, because Vince McMahon really did care about language barriers, just like other promoters or managers and other promotions and things like that. Now, I think the advantage that Stephanie has at this point that Asuka didn't have back then is I think now people, as far as wrestling fans, are more accepting of people who don't speak perfect English. I mean, we just saw a whole segment where Asuka and Kairi Sane was arguing with each other in Japanese, and people ate that up. People ate it up. Now, the thing is, with Asuka, when she was in NXT, and what made wrestlers like her successful in NXT is because the fans were there like that too. They cared more about the wrestling than they cared about the promo skills. So the fact that she couldn't speak perfect English didn't matter to people. For people like her, for people like Shinsuke Nakamura, for people like Andrade Cien Almas, because they didn't speak perfect English, people didn't really care. Now, the difference between these two is that when it comes to Stephanie, again, I'm not too familiar with all the matches she was involved in, so I can't really say that she's perfectly in the same position as Asuka and will be a person I call someone who has it all. But with Asuka, I watched her heavily in the independent scene, and when she came to NXT and did what she did, that was not surprising at all. And the one more thing I want to say about Stephanie, as far as the language barrier, what's interesting is I went to do some research on her and tried to watch some interviews to kind of get some understanding of where she came from and things like that. But all of her interviews were in full Spanish. Every one of them. The one she did with Denise Salcedo was in all Spanish. The one she did with other places, even though the questions were in English, she would respond in Spanish. So it makes you wonder if she can actually speak English at all. And I've seen some people say that she studied English and psychology in college, which I don't know. I take that with a grain of salt unless I can find some evidence that that's true. But even if that is true, just because you study English doesn't necessarily mean that you can speak fluent English good. It may give you the English 101, but there's a big difference between speaking in English and cutting a crazy promo. But that's what the performance center is for. It's for her to build that, and she can do what Kiro said. She can get a manager, and then up until the point where they figure out where she can get to a point where she's cutting a good promo, or they could just have her just like they had Walter or Gunther now, but Walter in NXT UK, when he first came over there, he wasn't speaking at all. It took a while before they got him to talk, and then eventually he talked. And then, as we saw last week in his promo with Damian Priest, or this week, he cut a pretty good promo. So there's ways they can get around it. Her aura and her in-ring ability is really good, so I think that can carry her so far. So I'm wondering how they're going to handle that whole situation.
Ever. So, you know, I'm looking more and more positively to Stephanie, and I'm seeing more and more what the hype is about. But enough about me. Me and Brian, we already talked about her. So in this video, I kind of want to get your general thoughts about Stephanie. What do you think about her? Do you think she has what it takes? Is she catching your eye right now?
Absolutely not. Does she have what it takes? I mean, I'm sure, because I mean, all of these girls can wrestle these days. And her match with Mercedes Moné, it wasn't bad at all, but it wasn't anything that stood out to me that was crazy. Like, oh, this woman, they gotta put her on the AEW roster. I just looked at it like, okay, all of these people are coming in for Forbidden Door. Let's go ahead and get them out of here so we can go ahead and continue with the AEW stories. But apparently, I mean, I don't think everybody, like, she didn't really shake the world in that Forbidden Door match. But when WWE signed her, then for whatever reason, now everybody loved her, and it was such a big signing. It was
That's true. Because I hadn't heard anyone say anything about her. Again, I was aware of her, but I didn't see anybody say much about her until they found out she got signed to WWE. And it wasn't just the WWE fans, it was everybody. Like, AEW was like, WWE, or some AEW fans were like, WWE wouldn't have found her if AEW didn't show her. And then WWE fans were like, well, she was in a match with an ex-WWE star, Mercedes Moné, and didn't know she was auditioning for WWE. And all of a sudden, everybody's a fan of hers, which is fine, which she deserves all the praise and acclaim and stuff like that. But I do notice that happens every time somebody gets signed. Like, for instance, Ethan Page. When he got signed, I saw a ton of people super excited about him being signed, but I do remember him before he came to WWE that a lot of people weren't too big on him in the ring or on the mics. But maybe these people are excited about the possibility of WWE kind of booking these people right and probably changing them in a way which will make their career succeed in a way, maybe because they feel like it's the best time to be in WWE right now, which I will understand. But yeah, I did notice that happens like a lot lately.
Great thing. This is groundbreaking. But when that match happened, like, I know you and Brian talked about her, but Brian was saying the match was boring. He was not invested. He didn't care about it. But when she signed to WWE, then he started making a big deal about it. So
yeah,
I mean,
right.
I'm not hyped about
Yo,
her.
Kenny, if you watching this, are you from the city? Are you from Chicago? Let me know.
Just because she signed to the WWE or a big company, she's gonna have to show me something. Because the only thing I really saw from her in a Mercedes Moné match that stood out was when she, like, put her legs in her head and started banging her head on the mat. I was like, all right, that was a cool move.
That's interesting. Yeah, agreed.
Out. And I mean, that's really it. But I mean, the hype is crazy. Everybody's in love with the young lady right now. So I mean, I'm not gonna hate on her. So she just gotta deliver. But I will tell you this, kiddo. We've seen a lot of these Mexican stars come into WWE, and they had issues because of their language.
Yeah.
Like Andrade, superstar.
Yeah.
Absolute superstar. But I think his big problem where he has that disconnect is where his English isn't too great. Eddie Guerrero,
that's when he got
great
Zelina.
English. Rey Mysterio, great English. But when these guys come in and they can't speak English, I mean, Alberto Del Rio, he had great English, and, you know, they kind of took him to the moon. But
he cooked. Well, until he didn't.
I think the lack of his success was more his fault as a performer and a person.
As a person, for sure.
Yeah.
WWE just can't really handle these people who can't speak these other languages. They started doing good with Shinsuke when they gave him the subtitles, but I don't know if that was connecting or not, or it was just too late.
It was at that point.
We got to remember too, like with Shinsuke, that was part of it, but also remember he had that match against John Cena where he botched that move and almost killed John Cena in the middle of the ring in front of a whole bunch of people. And you can tell that they were pushing Shinsuke Nakamura, but up until that match happened, after that you can feel like a full shift of how they was handling him after that happened. So I think that played probably 50, 60 to 75% of what's happening outside of the language barrier and everything else. I mean, I don't have proof to support that, but something happened after that match. That match did something, and you can't deny that one.
Too late. I thought you were gonna say they started off with Shinsuke good because he was great in NXT. Great. He was beating John Cena on top of the world, and at WrestleMania, all of a sudden, Vince just pulled the rug under him. So,
and then language barrier. Sorry, guys. Let's talk. Even though this is something different, and he's like a comedic act, so it's apple and oranges. But Santino Marella's. Like, can you imagine if he was speaking perfect English? That man would be so boring. But that accent made everything he say 10 times funnier, man. I loved it. Santino is like hilarious to me, man.
That was pretty much him, like his career there. Now, I said this exact same thing on our last video when I was with Brian. Like, that language barrier is real, and it's gonna be tough for her to overcome it. If she can, that's great for her. Like, I get it, I get the hype, and she's like, a Latina, woman. And I guess WWE might be looking for a spearhead when it comes to the woman in that, section for those fans. And like, I guess she'll play a great role, but I agree. Like, I see that. Well,
but isn't Bailey don't count? Or maybe he means they're just looking for like fresh blood, like a newer like spearhead for that, which I understand that for sure.
Example here, she's down the rounds, like had a match with pretty much anybody in, if not in AEW and other indie promotions and CMLL. But yeah, it's gonna be a whole nother ball game right now, because if she proved herself to, just as an example, 10 people, now she's gonna have to prove herself to 10,000. And will she be able to do that without being able to speak? Now, I don't know, but people did point out Asuka, for example. Like, she was pretty good, and I would argue really that if she didn't get basically jobbed out to Charlotte, you would definitely gotten more mileage out of Asuka, especially when she first debuted on the main roster. So that's going to be my next question. Do you think that just like an Asuka, Stephanie has that potential to be successful, even though, all Asuka does is dancing and screaming? You know what I mean? She somehow made it just because she's so good. She can, quote unquote, go like crazy in the ring.
She got to make up for that language barrier.
That's what they always say about Asuka, right? So do you think Stephanie can basically have a similar legacy like that?
Well, I don't know, because I was watching NXT every week when Asuka was down there, and she was having impressive matches.
Oh yeah, she was.
I was like, this girl is going insane, and when she gets to the main roster, there's no way they can drop the ball on her. She had the big undefeated streak. She took it all the way to the main roster, and they just cooked her. But I mean,
I guess I was a little bit more pessimistic back then when it came to that, because when Vince was running the main roster and Triple H was running NXT, especially the Black and Gold era, which is the best era, when a lot of my favorite wrestlers in NXT got called up, I almost had a heart attack, bro. I was so sad, because they will be so good in NXT, and then once they get called up, they would ruin them. They already almost, I mean, I'm not saying that DIY is doing amazing right now, at least they're tag champions, but when they first called them up, or pseudo called them up, they almost ruined them. You see what they did to Bobby Roode, which is one of the most famous failures to call-ups of all time in WWE. Like, we just talked about Andrade, we talked about Shinsuke Nakamura. The list goes on and on and on. And it's crazy how that was happening, like, back-to-back all the time. Like, we were hoping our favorite wrestler would never leave NXT, but the other side of me would be like, man, that's so selfish. Why you don't want them to leave Full Sail? They should go to the main roster and get more money and get a bigger contract. But it was a crazy time, man. Crazy time.
Because she's just on another level in the ring. One of the best women's wrestlers they have. As far as her doing the dancing and stuff, I get it. If she can't speak English, she has to get her personality over some way.
Yeah.
And I like the way she screams her language. Like, she speaks Japanese, just screaming it into the microphone. We don't know what she's saying, but she's still getting her personality across. Yeah. With Stephanie, I don't think she's as good in the ring. Well, she's definitely not as good as Asuka in the ring.
Not even close.
I mean, she's going to have to bring it with that personality to make up for it. She's a pretty woman. So, I mean, she's winning in that department, but you got to connect with the audience. And if she can't do that, I mean, look at Emelina, beautiful woman, but for whatever reason, she wasn't connecting and she just never worked out. So, yeah, she's going to have to figure it out, man. And will WWE let her wear those horns on her head? Because they try to stay away from, like, religious stuff.
Yeah, that's a good... Well, I don't know if they try to stay away from religious stuff. They kind of toed the line. Because remember the guy, I think his name was, like, Mordecai or something like that. They had some, like, symbolisms and stuff with the Ministry of Darkness and all these different things. But as of lately, I can see why that would be a concern, because she got horns on her head, so it may offend some people who are pretty religious, which, I understand that.
It'll be fine. Like, you see Zelina Vega do all sorts of cosplay stuff. I've never seen her wear
she's never worn anything straight up demonic.
But I think if people don't make a specific fuss about it, I don't know if it's really religious. Is it? Do you know anything about it?
Well, I mean, I look at them as devil horns, but maybe she's saying she's the goat. Maybe they're gold horns.
Devil, maybe a succubus. I don't know. But
yeah, succubus. I mean, succubus.
Come on, we're going on to Netflix. Come on now. Look, what worries me about this is...
But even with that, man, like, even with the goat horns, you know, you can go into talking about the bathroom and all that stuff like that. So I don't know if you stay away from that in general or allow her to wear it. I mean, she wore it in her live show when she had that match between her and I think it was Isla Dawn. So I don't know if they'll care too much about that. But she doesn't necessarily need it, regardless of what they do. She can still do it without that on her head, but that's just my opinion.
Asuka was crazy before she came to the WWE when she was still at a very high level, especially at NXT. Yep. But then main roster, like, you know for a fact that they're going to strip away 90% of the moves you do. You're going to not be wrestling as crazy as you are. So that's also going to be almost, you know, taken away for a large chunk. So that makes her character even more important. But maybe she'll be one of those, I guess, special wrestlers that they'll focus on their wrestling only because of that. But I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm more curious now, and I hope she succeeds. I also want to see, you know, what happens with her, I guess, classmate at this point, Julia, because they're pretty much looking like they're gonna come in at the same timing, and I think Julia is a similar situation. But yeah, I think you have a pretty grounded take on this, and I am really curious as to why people all of a sudden, as soon as she signed to the WWE, went crazy, because many other people signed to the WWE too, men, women, doesn't matter, but for some reason when Stephanie did it, exactly, so
Shawn Michaels was giving her shout outs, but with the reception and the feedback being so huge, do you think they should start her in NXT, or should they just catapult her to the main roster?
That's a good question. So my thing is, before I'm sorry for cutting them off. I know it's messed up because I don't want to change it or piggyback off what they're saying, because I want them to be able to fully say what they have to say without me trying to like copy their opinion on it. But here's my thing with her. I saw this thing where Dominic Mysterio was talking about the possibility of her joining the Judgment Day. If that's going to be the case, if she's going to be a part of the Judgment Day, take her to the main roster, because it doesn't make any sense to send her to NXT, because with the storyline going on right now with the Judgment Day, it seems like Rhea Ripley and Damian, or seems like it is, they're leaving the group at some point in time. Now, if the goal isn't to have Liv Morgan be the leader, which I kind of doubt that's going to be the case, if they're going to move her in to try to be that particular person, there's no point of putting her in NXT, because I highly doubt that they're going to stretch this out all the way for a full year just to wait for her to come up to the main, or just in general, right? Now, if they're not going to go that direction, if she's just going to be a solo competitor, then they should just keep her in NXT, develop her a little bit more, maybe for a year, get her promo skills up a little bit more, get her some reps in the ring, and then eventually call her up to the main roster. But that's just for me.
Honestly, if you're not going to do any changes to her character and to her presentation, like what we saw at the live event was like satisfactory, then I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a main roster push, get her up there, and have her beat get the title for Bayley, maybe, you know, because they're not doing it.
That's too soon.
Bayley.
Too soon.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just didn't like when they come in and get the title so early, just like Tiffany Stratton. I don't want her to get it no time soon, because I like the chase. Like, make her chase for a while, make her want it, because when you win the championship so early, okay, now what is there left to do? You already won the championship. We don't want to see you get it again because you already did it. So I don't know, but I will tell you this, kiddo. I think WWE signed her at the right time.
Yeah.
Because Elon Musk just hid all of our likes on X.
Kenny is wild, bro. This dude is crazy. Now, if they bring her up to the main roster, and if they bring her to Raw, they should just have her destroy a veteran face. I mean, we just saw Natalya just re-sign to WWE. I know it sucks to job her out to people, but it gives her something. It will give Stephanie something to do, and then to sit here and destroy this face. And if that can spin off into a storyline with another baby face or whatever, give her time to do that for some time or for some months. If she come in and get the title and she isn't what people thought she was going to be, that's going to really hurt her career on the main roster. And a lot of the times for a lot of these superstars, they don't really bounce back from that pretty good unless they get a better run like years down the line. But I think right now is the time to take advantage of her skills in WWE, and it's time to build her properly. I think the one person that I think, out of many people, but I think that they're building up perfectly at this point, is Valkyria. I think they're doing a tremendous job of building her up. And even though you can tell that they're pushing her, they're doing it little by little by little by little. And when it happens, it probably won't be no surprise because we saw her extending little by little. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Stephanie is main event material? Do you think she should go straight to NXT? Would you like to see her in the Judgment Day? Would you compare her to Asuka? Let me know in the comment section. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you guys so much. Salute, peace, have a good day.